from Calypso Networks Association, and we'll be talking about some of the services and experiences they've been having. Good afternoon, Philippe.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, good afternoon to all. So today I represent the Calypso Networks Association, which manages the Calypso standard. We are not providers of an NFC solution, but I would like to explain first in few words what is Calypso and what we propose to help the development of NFC services available for the MaaS development. In the second point of this presentation, I think interesting to share a few words with you and the consequences of the sanitary crisis and what impacts it can have on ticketing and MaaS development and generally speaking on public transport. So next slide, please. So first of all, what is Calypso? Calypso is an open standard on ticketing, which has the originality to have been designed by transport operators and authorities, not coming from the industry world, but coming from the world of users. It specificates a fast and secure contactless ticketing transaction, which is based on NFC technology, because it is the best solution for the fast throughput at transport locations, for the flow of passengers that we have in mass transit. It is used across different media, of course, cards, paper tickets, cards, but also smartphones and wearables today. It is suitable for whatever kind of schemes for the architecture of the ticketing system. That means media-based or account-based ticketing system. And it evolves, of course, to go on with the needs of the users, and particularly today with the needs of mobility as a service. I would add to this that an open standard as Calypso, NFC open standard, it is a closed loop ticketing scheme, of course. And I would say that closed loop open standard NFC represent today also a key for the sovereignty, digital sovereignty that you can have on your ticketing, and it's also true for the MaaS. Next slide, please. Calypso is worldwide deployed, of course, in 20 different countries, in different continents. Most important also to add here, it is a technology whose products are all certified, following a scheme of certifications, which ensure interoperability and compatibility of the development of the different manufacturers. As it is an open standard, the software of the cars, the software of the different portable objects can be developed by many different manufacturers, but the users, the operators, the authority require that they can buy to whatever manufacturer without any problem. So a certification ensures the compatibility and the interoperability of the solutions. Next slide, please. So Calypso Networks Association, it's an association, a not-for-profit association, regrouping more than 100 members coming from the transport sector, transport operators, transport authorities, but also from the industry, the car manufacturer, components, terminal manufacturers, integrators, ticketing integrators, and many others. Next slide, please. What are Calypso solutions for MaaS and for, more generally speaking, NFC? We have a lot of different specifications because our main goal is to specify solutions which are taken by the industry and transformed into products which are sold to the operators and to the authorities. But I would stress today on two aspects: the Calypso for mobile, because it enables to benefit from the Calypso advantages on a smartphone and NFC solutions, wearables also, and Calypso for terminals, because there we offer open source SDK and APIs, whose name is Eclipse Keeper, based on the Eclipse platform. The most interesting here, when we are speaking of MaaS, is that often users, operators, authorities which implement MaaS solutions don't have the intention to take NFC as a solution for their MaaS deployment, because often the actors in the MaaS mobility as a service are small actors providing bikes, scooters, and things like this, and they are often, they think at least, not to have the skills and resources to implement NFC solutions, which are often considered as more complex to develop than QR code, for example. And so we think that it is very important to bring to the developers of MaaS solutions tools which enables to have a very simple access to a very performant ticketing solution with the best ergonomy of the NFC, but enabling to do it in a simple way and to simplify the development. That's, I think, a booster for the MaaS, for NFC to be really the relevant technology used for the mobility as a service applications. Next slide, please. So Calypso for mobile, what it is, we provide both an applet, a software which is dedicated to be used for JavaCard, for Java components. That means it is hardware and software solution. It is delivered free of charge, of course, to all the members with the highest level of security. The main interest, I think, it requires no adaptation of the existing ticketing infrastructure. And so it has an interest to be able to be deployed relatively quickly. HCE, of course, we provide a specification for HCE, which is implemented by manufacturers. Of course, as HCE is less secure as the secure element, we also provide guidelines in order to reinforce the level of security of this kind of solution with measures, countermeasures at the system level. And we provide also a certification scheme, a security certification scheme, in order for the manufacturer to be able to provide to their users, to the operators, to the authorities, something which guarantee a level of security of the situation of the solutions they are buying. Next slide, please. So also a very big interest of this open solution is that means that it can be you can find this solution on many different Java platforms today. As it was told, there are many different components which are used as secure element in the smartphones. And the interest here is that our Calypso applet is available on many different platform from the most important manufacturers of Java platform, which are used in the smartphones as secure elements. You see them on this slide. Next slide, please. So today there are some NFC deployments with Calypso. Not so many as mobility as a service, because mobility as a service is still emerging, and there are not so many deployments or significant deployments, let's say, in different countries. But with the ticketing for the transit operations, we have the deployment, it has been told by Ribos some minutes ago, Île-de-France, Strasbourg, Lille, Toulouse, Nice. Next slide, please. And some others are done with HCE. The first one I was speaking were more on secure elements. These ones are based on HCE deployments in France, in Italy, in Portugal. There are this kind of deployments based on our specifications and our security measures. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share with you some reflections about the post-COVID impact on public transport, not on all topics about public transport, but at least on ticketing and development of the MaaS. We know after analyzing what's going on during this pandemic, that the behaviors and the needs of citizens are moving. First important point to take into account is the home working increase. For example, in the Paris region, home working was about 1% in 2018, and we know that it will be about 15% in 2022 after COVID. During COVID, it was pandemic, it was about 25 to 30%, but it will be less, but about 15%. The second topic, which is very important, there will be a new balance between mass transit and new mobilities, bikes, scooters. In Paris too, we have seen an increase of 25% of use of bikes in the city. Of course, it's important. It remains very few compared to mass transit, but it means that people are modifying their way to be mobile in the city. Of course, it will remain for some years a requirement to avoid crowds, queues, and things like this. So a need for at least offer social distancing. So ticketing must adapt to these new behaviors, and we have to accelerate the flow of passengers. Contactless, of course, is today the best solution. Unfortunately, we migrated to contactless years ago. Today, it's more and more important to offer to our customer quick access at ticket gates, remote sales in order to avoid crowds at the booth or at the vending equipment. But also, we have to propose adapted tarification, as it has been yet said, because people will not stay in the same way to use, let's say, flat fee subscription, monolithic tarification, because they want to be able to use transport, the means of transport at the last minute, the one they select, and to compare and to see the best one, and to decide at the last minute what they want to do. For example, between using their bike or the mass transit, depending on the meteo and the weather and all this. So we have also to take into account the new complementarity between mass transit and the individual means of transport. Next slide, please. So I think that we may speak about three pillars of the post-COVID ticketing situation in mobility and transport. And I would say in three words: NFC, pay-as-you-go, and mobility as a service. Contactless NFC, of course, because it's the best economy for the customer. It allows the speed of transactions that we require to avoid queue or to optimize flows of passengers, to optimize the commercial speed within the buses. For example, we do not have to forget also the buses. That's very important. Security, of course, of the transaction remains a key of contactless NFC. And something which is less often said is the reliability and resistance to vandalism. Unlike the QR code, for example, it is very resilient, the use of NFC. Pay-as-you-go, because it is the best answer to this new behavior of customers which want to pay the actual travel that they do and be able to choose at the last minute what they want to do, and not to be tariffed and something they have not done. So really, with best pricing, with fair capping and pay as you go, we have a solution to answer to these needs for flexibility in the use of mobility. And finally, of course, mobility as a service, because people will more and more use complementarily mass transit and other means of transport, and we have to help them and to accompany them in order to offer a seamless travel from A to B, simple and efficient. I think that's a way to define the mobility as a service also. So next slide, please. I thank you strongly for your attention, and I give back the word to Mike.
All right, thank you, Philippe. Our last speaker of our case studies before we transition to the panel is Stephanie with, I'm gonna get this conduit vision. I will turn it over to her and we will move through this last particular case study in France.